Yo, what's up? I wanted to make a quick tutorial on basically just what I think the best way to utilize the sequence trigger in Geometry Dash 2.2 is. If you're unaware of what the sequence trigger does, it basically just does a set amount of groups and a set amount of time in whatever order you set them to do it in. And so I just want to go over now a couple use cases that I found for it that I think make it a pretty nice trigger for this update. So option number one is using it to move stuff and then move it in a loop. So I guess I'll just showcase what I mean here. I have a move trigger, set group 1, instantly move group 2, say 2 to the right. And then say I move it back 4. And then have that on, I'll actually have this on 2. And I'll have both of these move 3. And then I'll give this 3. Again, just make sure these are spawn triggered multi-trigger, which they weren't. So there we go. Make this touch trigger multi-trigger, have it spawn group 1 once, group 2 once, and actually I'm going to do group 1 twice, which now I think about it, I think is what this count thing does. I haven't exactly messed with it too much just yet, but assuming that's what it does, then that should make it a little bit simpler. And then what this would do is basically loop that movement over and over again. Let me just center this to everything else nicely. And then as you can see, we have a nice little loop here. Oh, well, I guess I forgot to set it to mode loop, but you should get the point there. Now, what if you wanted to use it for something else? For example, what if I wanted to pick up this key and then have a small animation where it moves the camera over to here somewhere where it shows it removing this structure here, which, you know, clears your path to do whatever. Well, that would be pretty simple to set up too. Basically, you take your key or whatever, basically toggle 1, enable whatever, make your make your sequence that, make it group 1, and also spawn trigger multi-trigger as usual. Then take everything you want your spawn trigger to do and then basically lay it out. So I'm going to start by taking text and just making a number. So I want it to do its first thing where it basically moves the camera nice and slowly over to our little thing over here. Then I want it to remove it and play a sound effect at the same time. And then I want to finish it on moving back to where the player is and then giving them back control of their player. So basically laying that out. And now you don't have to do this part, this is just preference, but this is how I like to lay triggers out generally when I'm making something like this. Is I'm going to say, okay, I want to remove player control here, give it back to them here. There's the player control line. I also am going to want to move the camera at a certain point, which I will use the static trigger for. And there's my line of statics. For the middle section, I'm gonna need a just excuse me while I remember where this is. That's right. I'm gonna need a sound effect trigger as well as a toggle trigger. And I think that's it. So now on each of these, I'm also going to want to place a spawn trigger. And for each one of these spawn triggers, well, first of all, for each one of these triggers, full stop, I'm going to want to give them spawn trigger. Doesn't need multi-trigger because I'm going to be putting this sequence this time on mode stop so that it only does it once. I'm going to be giving each row of these a new group. So this is group 2, this is group 3, and this is group 4. And I'm going to want each one of these spawn triggers to spawn group 1. Now, I will also say on the very last section of this, you don't need a spawn trigger, so I'm just going to delete that now, because right here is where it's going to end. And then I'll just give everything else that needs groups. So obviously there's 5 for the toggle. I'll also put an invisible little hexagon right here. Group 6. Hide. That will be what this static goes to. I'll do follow. Even though it doesn't really need it, I'll take it away. Doesn't really need it. I'll do over duration 1, ease in out. Then this over duration 5, so like slower with ease in out, exit static. And then player control, P1 stop jump, P1, and I assume this just means give jump back because it's not ticked. I also want to stop move as well. Forgot about that part. And now everything here should be correctly laid out. So what we're going to do here next is we're going to give this spawn group 1, then 2, then 3. Or actually, my apologies, it needs to be 2, 3, and then 4. Because this is 2, 3, and 4. Maybe I should have written these out to reflect that, but, you know, to each their own, I guess, in whatever way that makes sense. And now what will happen is as soon as you hit this, because it toggles group 1, it will activate this, because it's got group 1, spawn trigger, multi-trigger. And then what this will immediately do is it will spawn group 2. And within group 2 are these triggers, which move the camera, as well as our spawn trigger, which will then respawn the sequence thing, moving it into the next phase, which will do these, as well as, you know, our little spawn trigger here as well that will play it again, moving it to the last one. And because this is the last one, that's also why we don't need an extra spawn trigger at the end here. It's because this is the end of the whole ordeal. But there's one more thing missing. We do want to add some slight delay to this. And the way we're going to do that is obviously by coming into the spawn and adding that. So if this camera takes 1 second to move over here, then I'm going to want it to take 1.5 seconds to move on to the next phase. So I want it to move over and then wait half a second before doing the next part. And then I'm going to set this delay, you know what, to about 1 second again. So after this happens, you have a full second to see what has happened before it will then, you know, move you to the next part. And I think just for fun, I'm gonna throw in a triple spike. No reason, just gonna throw that in there. And now, what we should have, if I've done everything correctly, is something that works. Now I'm really quickly just gonna set this to like a random explosion effect, not really. Okay, I was gonna say not really caring what it is, but like, that's pretty atrocious, right? There's a lot of really weird sounds in this game. So now, let's try this. If I come into my level with these things selected, everything built out like that, then I should, upon collecting this, get a nice animation showing me that this door over here has opened. So let's see that. There we go. Works perfectly. Let's just see that again. And let's just test everything works. Do we lose our movement? We do. I wasn't able to move during that cutscene. One more thing I just want to show you, just in case you are interested, is if you wanted to, you could find whatever the next free group is, in this case 7, and set this to activate that, and have whatever that group is be your first spawn trigger. Spawn triggered. Spawn 1 over 1.5 second delay. And all that would do is add delay to the first step, you know. Make it so that after you collect the key, there's a short moment where the player can still move and stuff, have time to like land on the ground again before it shows you anything, and that's basically about it. Now, I'm not too familiar with particles and whatnot, but you could obviously just add literally whatever triggers you want to these columns here to improve your little animation. But you could create some kind of radius animation, start 0, end that, and then have it go all the way around, max particles, just whatever the max is. I don't really know how to do this. Something like that, I don't really know. And then I guess give that a group 8. Then here, put your spawn particle group 8, position group 6, spawn triggered, and that's number 3. I don't expect this to work. I've never messed with this trigger before. Yeah, makes sense, but you get the point. You can basically do all sorts of things like that. You can add zooming to it. It's not important what you do with it. That's just how you would use the sequence trigger, which is a very, very useful trigger to create a little animation sequence like that. Alright, peace.